welcome to Yoga for All by the Yoga Funk. I'm your host, Jake.
And I'm Hannah.
How's your day going, Hannah?
It's going well. Thanks for asking. Busy getting ready for our episode today, but excited to explore this topic with you.
Can you believe we're on episode 8 already? Time has flown by.
Time flies when you're having fun, right? And speaking of fun, today we're talking about something I think we all could use a little more of in our lives: managing stress with yoga.
That's right. Whether you're brand new to yoga or a seasoned pro, we've got some insights and science-backed information today that can help you understand the powerful connection between yoga and stress management.
I think we can all agree that stress is something we experience on a daily basis. No matter how much we try to avoid it, it seems to find us.
Absolutely. Stress is woven into the very fabric of our biology. Think of our fight or flight response. It's an instinct that's been with us since the dawn of time. When our ancestors encountered a threat, like a saber-toothed tiger, their bodies would flood with hormones like adrenaline, prepping them to either fight or flee, right? That's fight or flight in action. And
So we're hardwired for these intense reactions.
exactly. Now, fast forward to today, we're not usually running from tigers, but our bodies still react the same way to modern day stressors. Think deadlines, traffic jams, that overflowing inbox. They trigger that same fight or flight cascade.
It's like our bodies haven't quite caught up to the 21st century.
Right, and the problem is when this stress response is constantly activated, it takes a toll on our well-being. We might experience physical symptoms like headaches, muscle tension, or digestive issues, and mentally we might feel anxious, irritable, or have difficulty concentrating. Over time, chronic stress can even increase our risk for more serious health problems.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty clear picture of why stress is a problem, but where does yoga come in?
That's where things get really interesting. Yoga helps us tap into the opposite of that fight or flight mode, something called the rest and digest response, which is governed by the parasympathetic nervous system.
Wait, hold on. Rest and digest. Tell me more about that.
Think of it as your body's built-in relaxation system. It's all about slowing things down, conserving energy, and promoting healing and repair. When the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, your heart rate slows, your breathing deepens, and those stress hormones start to recede.
So yoga helps us switch from a state of high alert to a state of calm.
Exactly. And research shows that yoga can actually reduce levels of cortisol, which is the primary stress hormone in our bodies. It also improves something called heart rate variability.
Heart rate variability? What exactly is that?
Heart rate variability refers to the natural variations in the time intervals between each heartbeat. It might sound technical, but it's a key indicator of how well our nervous system adapts to stress. A healthy heart doesn't beat like a metronome, perfectly evenly spaced. Instead, there's a natural fluctuation. That fluctuation is heart rate variability. Higher variability generally indicates a more resilient nervous system, one that can adapt to stress more effectively.
We talked a small snippet of this in one of our past episodes. Yoga is like a workout for our nervous system, helping it become more flexible and adaptable to stress.
Yep. It's not just about feeling calmer after a yoga session. There's real science backing up these benefits.
I love it when that happens. The ancient wisdom aligning with modern science.
Absolutely.
Now, for our listeners who are already familiar with yoga, you might be thinking, well, I already knew that. But stick with us, even if you're a seasoned yogi. We're going to delve into specific poses and techniques that you can use to target stress relief, plus explore some fascinating research on the impact of yoga on the brain.
And for those of you who are new to yoga, don't worry, we'll break everything down step by step, ensuring that you feel comfortable and confident. exploring these practices.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Let's dive into some specific yoga poses. These are simple, yet incredibly effective tools for managing stress.
Absolutely. Let's start with a classic child's pose or balasana.
Child's pose, great pose.
It's a gentle pose that's incredibly effective for calming the nervous system and releasing tension in the back and shoulders. Picture this. You're kneeling on your mat, big toes touching, knees about hip width apart. As you exhale, you fold forward from your hips, bringing your forehead to rest on the mat.
It sounds like a gentle way to just surrender and let go.
Exactly. And that's the key here. As you hold the pose, focus on your breath. Inhale deeply, filling your belly with air, and then exhale slowly. Imagine all the stress melting away with each breath.
So simple, yet so powerful. What other poses can we explore?
Yes. Let's move on to cow pose or Marjai asana to Bitil asana. This one involves gentle movements that flow with your breath, helping to loosen up your spine, improve circulation, and release tension.
I love cat-cow. It feels like a gentle massage for the spine.
It does. Here's how it works. You start on your hands and knees. Hands shoulder width apart, knees hip width apart. As you inhale, arch your back like a cat, dropping your belly toward the floor and lifting your chest and chin toward the ceiling. That's cow pose. Then as you exhale, round your spine like a cat, stretching, tucking your chin to your chest and drawing your belly button in toward your spine. And that's cat pose.
I love the visual of a cat stretching and a cow standing tall. So with this pose, we're moving fluidly between these shapes while syncing up with our breath.
Exactly. And as you flow between these two poses, really tune into the sensations in your body. Notice how your spine feels as it moves through these gentle waves. Let your breath guide you and allow each inhale and exhale to create space and release tension.
I'm already feeling more relaxed just thinking about it. Are there any other poses we should try?
Absolutely. Let's add forward fold or Uttanasana to our stress-busting toolkit.
Forward fold, is that the one where you basically fold yourself in half?
You got it. It's a calming pose that stretches the hamstrings, which can get tight from stress. And it also increases blood flow to the brain, which can help you feel more clear-headed.
Sign me up. So how do we do it?
It's pretty straightforward. Start standing with your feet hip width apart. As you exhale, bend forward from your hips, keeping your spine as long as you can. Let your head hang heavy, and you can gently sway side to side. If that feels good, it sounds like
A great way to just shut out the world for a moment and tune into your body.
Exactly. And remember, in all of these poses, the key is to listen to your body and find what feels good. If you feel any discomfort, back off or modify the pose.
That's such an important reminder. Yoga should never be about pushing ourselves to the point of pain.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating a sense of awareness and honoring our bodies.
Okay, so we've got child's pose for surrendering and letting go, cat, cow for spinal waves, and forward fold for tuning inward. Those are some great starting points. And
these are just a few examples. Countless other yoga poses can help with stress management. We encourage you to explore and find what resonates with you.
I'm already inspired to roll out my mat and try these poses. But before we do that, I'm curious about breathing techniques. You mentioned earlier that our breath is a powerful tool for managing stress. Let's dive into that more.
Absolutely. Breathing techniques, or pranayama as they're known in yoga, are like a secret weapon for stress relief. And the best part is you can practice them anytime, anywhere. Even if you don't have time for a full yoga session.
I'm all ears. Tell me everything.
One technique that's particularly effective for calming the mind is alternate nostril breathing or nadi shodhana.
Alternate nostril breathing. That sounds intriguing. How does it work?
It might feel a little unusual when you first try it, but it's incredibly calming and energizing once you get the hang of it. It helps balance the energy in your body and promotes a sense of peace and tranquility.
Okay, I'm willing to give it a try. Talk me through it.
Find a comfortable seated position, either on the floor or in a chair. You make sure your spine is nice and tall and your shoulders are relaxed. Now, bring your right hand up to your face. Gently close your right nostril with your right thumb. Inhale slowly and deeply through your left nostril. Then release your thumb and close your left nostril with your right ring finger. Exhale slowly through your right nostril. That's one round.
So we're basically alternating between nostril.
Exactly. Now inhale through your right nostril and exhale through your left. Continue this pattern, inhaling through one nostril, exhaling through the other for a few minutes.
It's like a little dance for our breath.
I love that description. And as you're breathing, focus on the sensation of the air flowing in and out of your nostrils. Notice how your body and mind begin to relax.
I can't wait to try this one out. What other breathing techniques should we explore?
Another one that's great for inducing relaxation is diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing.
Belly breathing? Isn't that how we're supposed to breathe naturally?
You're absolutely right, it is. But many of us, especially when we're stressed, tend to breathe shallowly into our chest. Diaphragmatic breathing helps us reconnect with our natural breathing pattern, which is much more calming and efficient.
So how do we do it?
Find a comfortable position, either lying down or sitting up. Place one hand on your chest and the other hand on your belly, just below your rib cage.
This helps you feel the movement of your breath.
Exactly. Now inhale slowly and deeply through your nose, allowing your belly to rise. As you fill your lungs with air, your chest should stay relatively still. As you exhale slowly through your mouth, gently draw your belly button towards your spine, emptying your lungs completely.
It sounds so simple, yet so effective.
It really is. Diaphragmatic breathing is a great way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which, as we talked about earlier, is all about rest and relaxation. It's like hitting the reset button on your stress response.
I'm definitely adding this to my daily routine.
And we have one more breathing technique to share with you. Bee breath or Braha Pranayama.
Bee breath. Now that one sounds interesting.
It does, doesn't it? It's called bee breath because it involves making a gentle humming sound like a bee. It's a surprisingly effective technique for calming the nervous system and reducing anxiety.
I love that.
Yeah.
So how do we make ourselves buzz like a bee?
Find a comfortable seated position and close your eyes gently. Take a few deep breaths to center yourself. Now, as you inhale, draw a long, deep breath through your nose. And as you exhale slowly through your nose, make a gentle humming sound like a bee buzzing. Keep your lips lightly sealed and let the sound vibrate in your throat and chest.
This is amazing. I can already feel my mind quieting down.
It's quite powerful, isn't it? The vibrations created by the humming sound have a soothing effect on the nervous system. Continue for a few rounds, focusing on the sound and the vibrations.
Okay, so we have alternate nostril breathing for balancing energy, diaphragmatic breathing for deep relaxation, and bee breath for quieting the mind. That's an amazing toolkit for managing stress.
It is. And remember, these are just a few examples. There are many other breathing techniques out there. We encourage you to explore and find what resonates with you.
But before we get too carried away with all these breathing exercises, I'm curious about the science behind all of this. You mentioned earlier that there's actual research supporting the benefits of yoga for stress management. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. There's a growing body of research showing just how powerful yoga can be for reducing stress and improving overall well-being. Studies have shown that regular yoga practice can significantly lower cortisol levels, which, as we talked about before, is the primary stress hormone.
Right. And we know that high levels of cortisol over a prolonged period can have negative impacts on our physical and mental health.
Exactly. So, by reducing cortisol levels, yoga helps to protect our bodies and minds from the damaging effects of chronic stress.
I'm starting to see how yoga is more than just a physical practice. It's really a holistic approach to well-being.
It absolutely is. Yoga works on multiple levels: physical, mental, and emotional, to help us manage stress and cultivate a sense of balance and peace in our lives.
And it's not just about reducing cortisol. Yoga has also been shown to improve heart rate variability, which, as we discussed earlier, is a measure of how well our nervous system can adapt to change. Higher heart rate variability is associated with greater resilience to stress.
So, yoga is essentially training our nervous systems to be more adaptable and less reactive to stress.
Precisely. And the beauty of it is that it's a gentle and accessible practice that anyone can do.
Absolutely.
I'm loving this more and more.
Yeah.
What else does the research tell us about the benefits of yoga for stress management?
Well, beyond the physical benefits, yoga also has a profound impact on our minds. Studies have shown that yoga can improve mood, reduce anxiety, and even enhance cognitive function.
So it's like a workout for the brain as well as the body.
Exactly. And one of the key mechanisms behind these mental benefits is mindfulness. Yoga encourages us to be present in the moment, to pay attention to our breath, our body, and our thoughts without judgment.
It's about cultivating that sense of awareness both on and off the mat.
Exactly. And this mindfulness practice has been shown to have incredible effects on the brain, reducing activity in the amygdala, that's the part of the brain that processes fear and stress, and increasing activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive function, emotional regulation, and decision making.
So basically, yoga is helping to rewire our brains for calmness and clarity.
You got it. The more we practice, the more we cultivate these neural pathways, making it easier to manage stress and respond to challenges in a more balanced and skillful way.
Wow, I'm blown away by all this research. Yeah, it's incredible to see how something as ancient as yoga is now being validated by modern science.
It's a beautiful reminder that we have so much wisdom and healing potential within ourselves, and yoga is a powerful tool for tapping into that potential. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground today, but I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about some real-life examples of how people have benefited from yoga for stress management.
I think that would be really helpful for our listeners. It's one thing to hear about the research, but it's another thing to hear about how yoga has actually transformed people's lives.
You're right. I've seen firsthand how yoga can be truly transformative, especially when it comes to managing stress. I've worked with students who have overcome burnout, reduced anxiety, and improved their overall sense of well-being through yoga.
That's incredible. Do you have any specific stories you can share with us?
I do. I had one student who came to me feeling completely burnt out from her high-pressure job. She was exhausted, anxious, and struggling to sleep. Initially, she was skeptical about whether yoga could really help, but she was willing to give it a try. And after just a few weeks of practicing restorative yoga, which focuses on gentle poses and deep relaxation, she started to notice a significant difference.
Restorative yoga sounds perfect for those times when you just need to unwind and let go.
It is. And for this student, it was exactly what she needed. She started sleeping better, her anxiety decreased, and she felt more energized and focused at work. She even told me that yoga had become her sanctuary, a place where she could escape the demands of her daily life and reconnect with herself.
That's such an inspiring story. It's amazing how even a small amount of time dedicated to self-care can have such a ripple effect on our overall well-being.
It really can. And it's not just about forming formal yoga practice. I've also had students who have found immense relief from stress simply by incorporating breathing techniques into their daily lives.
Like the ones we practiced earlier?
Exactly. I had one student who struggled with anxiety, particularly in social situations. We worked together on developing a simple breathing practice that she could use anytime she felt overwhelmed. It wasn't a,
It's like having a secret weapon against stress that you can carry with you everywhere.
it is. And it's not really a secret. These techniques are available to all of us. We just need to remember to use them.
And so we've talked about the poses, the breathing techniques, the science, and even heard some inspiring stories. Now, for our listeners who are eager to experience these benefits for themselves, how can we actually make stress relief yoga a part of our busy lives? Any tips for those who might be feeling overwhelmed just thinking about adding one more thing to their to-do list?
I understand life can be hectic, but I promise even small steps can make a big difference. To start, try setting aside just 5 or 10 minutes each day for some mindful breathing or gentle stretching.
5 or 10 minutes? That feels doable.
It is. You can do this first thing in the morning, before bed, or even during your lunch break.
I love the idea of incorporating these practices into little pockets of time throughout the day.
Exactly. And you don't need a fancy yoga studio or tons of equipment. You can practice at home, in your office, or even outdoors if the weather permits. Just find a space where you feel comfortable and can focus on your breath.
And what about creating a calming environment for practice? Any tips on that?
Absolutely. Simple things can make a big difference. Dim the lights, light some candles or incense if you like, maybe put on some soothing music.
Yeah.
You can also use essential oils like lavender or chamomile, which have calming properties.
It's about setting the mood and creating a little sanctuary for yourself.
Exactly. And if you're doing some of the more restorative poses like child's pose or supported forward fold, don't be afraid to use props like blankets, pillows, or bolsters to support your body and make the poses even more relaxing.
Props are our friends. They can make a big difference in terms of comfort and support.
They really can. And if you're moody yoga or feeling a little lost, there are so many resources available to help you get started. There are tons of great apps, online videos, and even local studios that offer beginner-friendly classes.
It's about finding what works best for you and your learning style.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment, try different poses, different breathing techniques, and see what resonates with you. The most important thing is to find a practice that you enjoy and that helps you feel calmer and more centered.
I love that. It's all about finding what brings you joy and peace.
And remember, consistency is key. The more you practice, the more you'll reap the benefits. Even a few minutes a day can make a difference.
And as with anything new, be patient with yourself. It takes time to develop a regular practice. Don't get discouraged if you miss a day or two. Just get back to it when you can.
It's such an important reminder. We're all human and life happens.
It does, and most importantly, have fun. Yoga should be a source of joy and self-discovery, not another chore on your to-do list.
Absolutely. It's a journey, not a destination.
So we've explored some powerful yoga poses and breathing techniques for stress management, and it's clear that yoga offers a holistic approach to well-being.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm curious to hear more about how these practices actually work on a deeper level.
You're right. There's a whole world of fascinating science behind the benefits, methods of yoga for stress relief. And we've only just scratched the surface.
Well, let's get on with it then. What's going on in our brains and bodies when we practice yoga that helps us manage stress so effectively?
One of the key players here is the autonomic nervous system, which controls many of our body's automatic functions like breathing, heart rate, and digestion.
Okay, I remember you mentioned this earlier.
Yeah.
It's divided into two branches: the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs the rest and digest response.
Exactly. And as we talked about before, when we're stressed, our sympathetic nervous system kicks into gear, releasing hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which prepare us to deal with the perceived threat.
So our heart rate and breathing speed up, muscles tense up, and we become more alert and focused.
Right. It's that classic stress response that we all know so well. But here's where yoga comes in the case. Yoga helps to shift the balance from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system, activating that rest and digest mode.
So yoga helps us calm down, essentially.
Precisely. The deep breathing, slow movements, and mindful awareness that we cultivate in yoga practice all send signals to our brains and bodies that it's safe to relax and let go.
And as we practice yoga more regularly, our nervous system becomes more adaptable to stress. We're essentially training ourselves to respond to challenges in a more balanced and skillful way.
It's like yoga is giving our nervous system a workout, helping it become more resilient and less reactive to stress.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that it's a gentle and accessible practice that anyone can do.
Now, I know we talked about cortisol earlier, but can you remind us again why it's so important to manage our cortisol levels?
Cortisol is often referred to as the stress hormone because it's released by our bodies in response to stress. It plays a vital role in helping us cope with challenging situations. But when cortisol levels remain elevated for prolonged periods, it can wreak havoc on our health.
Right. We talked about how chronic stress can lead to all sorts of problems like anxiety, depression, insomnia, and even weakened immunity.
Exactly. And cortisol is a major culprit in all of this. So by reducing cortisol levels, yoga helps to protect our bodies and minds from the damaging effects of chronic stress.
It's amazing how something as simple as practicing yoga can have such a profound impact on our hormonal balance.
It is. And the research on yoga and cortisol is quite compelling. Studies have consistently shown that regular yoga practice can significantly lower cortisol levels, both in people who are chronically stressed and in those who are simply looking to manage everyday stress.
That's really encouraging to hear. Now, I'm curious about heart rate variability. We touched on this briefly before, but can you explain a little more about what it is and why it's important?
Absolutely. Heart rate variability, or HRV as it's often called, is a measure of the variation in the time intervals between heartbeats.
So instead of our heart beating like a metronome, perfectly evenly spaced, there's actually a natural fluctuation in the time between each beat.
Exactly. And that fluctuation is what we call heart rate variability. Higher HRV is generally considered a sign of a healthy and resilient nervous system, one that can adapt to stress more effectively.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, someone with high HRV is better equipped to handle stress than someone with low HRV.
That's the general idea. A high HRV suggests that your nervous system is flexible and responsive, able to switch between the fight or flight mode and the rest and digest mode as needed.
Whereas a low HRV might indicate that your nervous system is stuck in overdrive, constantly pumping out stress hormones, even when there's no real threat.
Exactly. And this chronic state of stress can lead to all those health problems we talked about earlier, like anxiety, insomnia, and heart disease.
So how does yoga fit into all of this?
Well, research has shown that yoga can improve heart rate variability. This suggests that yoga helps to regulate the autonomic nervous system, promoting a healthy balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches.
So by practicing yoga, we're essentially training our nervous systems to be more adaptable and less reactive to stress. leading to greater resilience and overall well being.
Exactly. It's like we're giving our nervous systems a workout, helping them become more flexible and responsive to the demands of life.
That's a great analogy. Now, I know we've been focusing a lot on the physical benefits of yoga, but I'm also curious about its impact on the mind. We talked about mindfulness earlier, but could you elaborate on that a bit more?
Absolutely. You see, yoga isn't just about stretching and strengthening our bodies. It's also about cultivating a sense of mindfulness and awareness.
Mindfulness is often defined as paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Right. It's about noticing our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without getting swept away by them.
And yoga provides a perfect framework for practicing mindfulness. The focused breathing, the slow and deliberate movements, and the emphasis on body awareness all cultivate a state of present moment attention.
So instead of getting caught up in worries about the past or anxieties about the future, yoga helps us anchor ourselves in the here and now.
Exactly. And this shift in perspective can be incredibly powerful when it comes to managing stress.
Because when we're fully present in the moment, we're less likely to be overwhelmed by racing thoughts or negative emotions.
It's like we're creating a space between ourselves and our stressors, allowing us to respond to them with greater clarity and calm.
Precisely. And the research on mindfulness and stress is quite remarkable. Studies have shown that mindfulness-based practices like yoga can reduce anxiety, improve mood, and enhance our ability to cope with challenging situations.
So, yoga isn't just about feeling good in the moment. It's about equipping ourselves with the mental and emotional tools to navigate life's ups and downs with greater resilience and ease.
Exactly. And the more we practice yoga, the more we cultivate these mindfulness skills, which can then extend beyond the mat and into our daily lives.
I love that idea of yoga as a training ground for mindfulness, a place where we can develop the mental and emotional muscles we need to thrive in the face of stress.
It's a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah.
Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground today exploring the science behind yoga's stress-relieving benefits, from its impact on the autonomic nervous system to its role in regulating cortisol and improving heart rate, variability. And we've also delved into the profound effects of mindfulness.
So it's been a fascinating journey through the mind-body connection. And I think we've gained a deeper understanding of how yoga empowers us to manage stress and cultivate a sense of peace and well-being.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear more about your personal experiences with yoga and stress management, but I'm curious to know how yoga has impacted your own life.
That's a great question. You know, yoga has been a part of my life for over a decade now, and I can honestly say that it's been transformative in countless ways.
I'm all ears. Tell me everything.
Well, before I discovered yoga, I was definitely prone to stress. I was a high achiever, always striving for perfection and pushing myself to the limit.
I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of constant pressure to perform and succeed.
Absolutely. And I was definitely feeling the effects. My mind was always racing. I had trouble sleeping, and I often felt overwhelmed and exhausted.
So how did yoga change things for you?
Yoga taught me the power of slowing down. It taught me to tune into my body, to listen to its whispers, and to honor its needs.
That's so powerful.
And through the practice of yoga, I began to develop a deeper awareness of my breath and my thoughts. I started to notice the patterns of stress in my body and mind. And I learned tools to interrupt those patterns and cultivate a sense of calm. And so part of being a meditation teacher was being a kind practitioner.
So yoga became a way for you to manage stress and cultivate a sense of inner peace.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing journey. Of course, there are still times when I feel stressed or overwhelmed, but yoga gives me the tools to navigate those challenges with greater ease and resilience.
I love that. It's a reminder that yoga isn't about achieving some perfect state of bliss. It's about learning to ride the waves of life with more grace and equanimity.
You said it perfectly. Now, I know we've talked a lot about the benefits of yoga for stress management, but I'm wondering if there are any potential downsides or things people should be aware of before they start practicing.
That's a great question, and it's important to address. Yoga is generally a safe and beneficial practice for most people, but there are a few things to keep in mind.
Okay, let's hear it.
First of all, it's always a good idea to consult with your doctor before starting any new exercise program, especially if you have any underlying health conditions.
Right, and it's important to listen to your body. If you feel any pain or discomfort during a pose, back off or modify the pose as needed.
Don't push yourself beyond your limits. Yoga is a practice of self-awareness and compassion, not competition.
Exactly. And if you're new to yoga, it's a good idea to start with a beginner-friendly class or work with an experienced teacher who can guide you safely and effectively.
A qualified teacher can help you learn proper alignment and modifications to suit your individual needs and abilities.
Right. And finally, it's important to remember that yoga is a journey, not a destination. It's not about achieving some perfect pose or becoming a yoga master. It's about showing up on your mat with an open mind and a willingness to explore what feels good for your body and mind.
I love that. It's about embracing the process, not striving for perfection.
Exactly. So if you're feeling inspired to try yoga for stress management, remember to start slowly, listen to your body, and have fun with it.
I'd love to hear your thoughts. Jake, what resonated with you the most?
I think what struck me the most was the interconnectedness of our minds and bodies. It's fascinating to see how yoga bridges that gap, impacting both our physical and mental well-being.
And I'm particularly intrigued by the science behind it all. The research on yoga's effects on the nervous system, cortisol levels, and heart rate variability is really compelling.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It's empowering to know that we have these tools at our disposal to manage stress and cultivate a sense of peace.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up this segment, I'd love to hear from you, our listeners. What resonated with you the most from our discussion so far? Was it a particular pose or breathing technique, or perhaps a scientific finding that sparked your curiosity? Take a moment to reflect on what stood out to you and how you might incorporate these insights into your own life. We've covered so much ground today, exploring the incredible ways yoga can help us manage stress, from understanding the science behind it to trying out specific poses and breathing techniques. And hearing those inspiring stories about how yoga has transformed people's lives really brings it all home. But now let's get practical. How can we actually integrate these powerful tools into our daily lives, especially when it feels like we're already juggling a million things?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, well, maybe not literally, but definitely valuable. The good news is it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Even small steps can make a big difference. It's all about finding those little pockets of time throughout the day where you can pause and reconnect with yourself. Maybe it's 5 minutes of deep breathing before you start your workday, or a few gentle stretches during your lunch break.
Yeah, those are great times.
Even just a minute or two of conscious breathing when you're feeling overwhelmed can help to shift your energy and calm your nervous system.
I love those suggestions. They're so doable and easy to incorporate into our busy lives.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the more natural it will become. It's like building any new habit. It takes time and consistency, but the rewards are so worth it. Speaking of rewards, let's revisit some of the key benefits we've explored today. Why should our listeners prioritize making stress relief yoga a part of their lives?
Well, as we've discussed, yoga helps to regulate the autonomic nervous system, shifting us from that fight or flight mode to a state of rest and digest. This means lower cortisol levels, reduced anxiety, and a greater sense of calm and well-being. Yoga also improves heart rate variability, which is a sign of a healthy and resilient nervous system. Essentially, it helps us become more adaptable to stress and less likely to get thrown off balance by life's challenges.
Right.
And let's not forget the power of mindfulness, which is cultivated through yoga practice.
Right.
Mindfulness helps us to become more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. This allows us to create space between ourselves and our stressors, enabling us to respond to them with greater clarity and composure.
So, we have this incredible toolkit at our disposal to manage stress and live more balanced and fulfilling lives. But it's up to each of us to actually use it. Now, let's talk about some practical tips for making stress relief yoga a part of your daily routine. Where should our listeners start?
Well, first of all, it's important to find a time and place that works for you. It doesn't have to be a long, elaborate practice. Even just a few minutes each day can make a difference. You could try practicing first thing in the morning to set a positive tone for your day.
I like that.
Or maybe a few minutes of yoga before bed will help you unwind and sleep more soundly. You could even incorporate yoga into your work breaks to help you de-stress and recharge. Experiment and see what feels best for you.
That's great advice. And it's a reminder that yoga doesn't have to be confined to the mat. We can incorporate these principles of mindfulness and breath awareness into all aspects of our lives.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to creating a dedicated practice space, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just find a quiet corner in your home or office where you can comfortably move and breathe. You might want to dim the lights, light a candle, or put on some soothing music to create a relaxing ambiance. And don't forget about props. Blankets, pillows, and bolsters can be your best friends, especially for restorative poses.
They're so helpful. They help to support
Your body and make the poses even more comfortable and relaxing.
I love that image of creating a little sanctuary for yourself, a space where you can escape the demands of the outside world and simply be now. For our listeners who are brand new to yoga, where do you recommend they begin?
Starting with a beginner-friendly class is always a great option. A qualified teacher can guide you safely and effectively, teaching you proper alignment and modifications. And
Right?
if you prefer to practice at home, there are tons of amazing resources available online and through apps. Just make sure to choose reputable sources and listen to your body always. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try different styles of yoga, different teachers, and different approaches until you find what resonates with you. It's all about making yoga your own.
That's such an important point. It's not about finding the right way to do yoga. It's about finding what feels good for you.
Exactly. And remember to be patient with yourself. Building a consistent yoga practice takes time. Don't get discouraged if you miss a day or two. Just get back to it when you can.
Exactly.
And most importantly, have fun. Yoga should be a source of joy and self-discovery, not another chore on your to-do list.
I love that reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in the striving and the perfectionism, but ultimately, yoga is about connecting with ourselves on a deeper level and cultivating a sense of peace and well-being.
It's about embracing the journey, not just the destination. Now, as we wrap up this episode, I'd like to offer a final thought. We've explored the profound benefits of yoga for stress management, the science, the pacing poses, the breathing techniques, the personal stories.
It's a lot to take in, but
Ultimately, the most important takeaway is yoga is a gift you give to yourself. It's a practice of self-care, self-compassion, and self-discovery. And it's available to you anytime, anywhere. So roll out your mat, take a deep breath, and step into the transformative power of yoga. Thank you for joining us on this episode into Yoga for Stress Management. We hope you feel inspired and empowered to make these practices a part of your life. And remember, even a few minutes of yoga each day can make a world of difference. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to check out our website, theyogafunk.com, where you'll find more resources, including guided meditations, stress relief flows, and helpful articles. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. We'll be back next week with another episode into the world of yoga. Until then, stay grounded, stay present, and keep practicing.